Hey, welcome. This is Lee Waller, and I am working with Unreal Engine's new motion design tools. Now, I have updated to the new 5.5 version. Up to this point, I was working in 5.4.4, but the new preview version has come out, and so I've loaded it. There have been some changes to the way that they are doing things, and they've definitely made some improvements. So if you want to upgrade to the 5.5 version, just open up the Epic Games launcher, make sure you're in the Unreal tab, and then go to the engine versions, click on the plus button right there, and you'll be able to select the version that you want to add. I've already added 5.5, so it's not an option for me, but go ahead and select that and hit install. It'll take a few minutes to download and install, but after that, you can launch 5.5. And it'll set up the same way that I set up all of my other projects. I have a video on that to access the motion design tools. So once I've opened up Unreal Engine 5.5 and I've set up the motion design mode with the motion design tools, we can get started. In this tutorial, I'm going to take a look at using the Mask Modifier. If you're familiar with After Effects, this is pretty much like using the track mat. It does take a few minutes for me to build the lower third. So if you want to jump to the section where I apply the mask, go ahead and check down in the chapters and you should find that applying the mask. I'm going to start out by creating a lower third. This will touch on the basics of using the mask modifier. Then I'll jump to actually using a media plate with some video in it. To start this off, I'm going to jump over into the 2D shapes and I'm going to create an ellipse. Just double click on that. With the ellipse selected, I'm going to jump down to the materials and I'm going to change this from simple to material designer. Now they have a new material designer and this is completely new with a lot of new options. I'll be taking a look at that in a later tutorial. I am going to start off with a PBR right now and hit continue. And I'll make a little bit more room for this so we can see this and zoom out on our plane right there. You'll see we have global settings, channels, and where I want to start is in the base color right here. I'm going to open this up just a little bit more so we can see it better. And right here in our base layer, I'm going to change this from a texture to a solid color. And then I'll select that color. Just come over here with a little bit of a blue, maybe darken that up a bit. And hit OK on that. I'm going to go back to the global settings and I'm going to change this blend mode from opaque to translucent. This will help us in stacking our layers the way that we need to. Now I know that I'm going to reuse this material, so I'm going to save it. Going to click right up here, save as, and in my content folder right there, I'm going to add another folder. I'm going to right click, new folder, and I'm going to label this materials. Open that up and then I'll label this blue. And hit save. Going to close this out and I'm going to add another ellipse to this so that we can create an outline. So I'm going to take that ellipse right there and I'm going to duplicate it, Control D. I'm going to label this ellipse 2 as ellipse outline. And I'm going to make it a child of the original ellipse. With that ellipse outline still selected, I'm going to jump into the operator stack and I'm going to drop down to outline. And I'm going to change that distance down to about 6 just to make that a little bit thinner. And then I'll need to create a material for the outline. I'm going to go into Edit with Material Designer and it's already set to translucent. I'll go to the base color here and I'm going to change that base color. And I'm going to click right here and I'm going to change that to a little bit of a gold color and hit OK right there. And then I'm going to save this one also, save as. We'll go back into our materials folder and I'll just label this one gold and hit save. Then we can close out of that material designer. I'm going to create just a simple logo shape for this real quick. I'm going to double click on the chevron, drop that in there and bring that down in size just a little bit, probably to 0.6. I want to make a material for that chevron. So with it selected, we're going to drop down to material, change that from simple, and let's go into the material designer. Again, PBR, I'm going to hit continue right there. And I'm going to go into the blend mode again and change this to translucent. Then I'm going to jump into the base color right here, and I'm going to go from a texture, click on that icon right there, and I'm going to change this to a gradient, a linear gradient, and I'm pretty much going to go with the default on that one. And I'll label this one also, save as, go into my material folders and label this gradient. I'm going to close that out, and you'll see this flickering right here. That means that we're having a render issue, and with these flat 2D layers, all three of them are sitting on top of each other. And we're going to fix this by using the translucent priority modifier. We will need to wrap all of these up into a null object. So I'm going to go up here and make sure that I have them all selected. And with all of these layers selected, I'm going to click the null object right there. Now those three objects are wrapped up in this null actor 1. I'm going to select it and go into the operator stack and go to modifiers and translucent priority. You'll see that the translucent priority modifier has been added, and right now it's on auto outliner tree. And we're going to go change the stacking order of these three layers in that null object, and that way we will see them the way that we want to. So back in the motion design outliner, I'm going to grab the chevron and I'm going to bring it up and drop it right there above that ellipse. And now you'll see that they are stacking correctly and they're going to render correctly. So by making each one of these a translucent material and then using that translucent priority modifier, we're able to stack these based on this stacking order right here. Just to add a little bit more to my logo design here, I'm just going to duplicate that chevron real quick, and then I'm just going to rotate this new one 180 degrees right here. And there's our logo. I'm going to go to my null actor 1 and I'm going to label this logo ellipse. And I'm going to close this up. I'm going to build the main body of the lower third now. So I'm going to go to my rectangles here in the 2D Shapes tab, double click on that. That drops in that rectangle, and I'm going to adjust the size of this. So with that rectangle selected, we'll drop down into the properties here. We'll go into the shape properties, and we're going to need to drop down to the mesh size right here. And I'm going to set that to free right there. And let me arrange this a little bit better. And I'm going to set the X to 350 and the Y to 60. And based on that, now I can move my logo ellipse over and position it. So with the logo ellipse selected, I'll slide that over a little bit and set it about right there. So that has us at about, I'll set it at -195. I'm going to go back to my rectangle and make an adjustment to it. On the right slant right here, I want to slant that a little bit. So I'll drag that out maybe to about 30. So just like the logo ellipse has a fill and an outline, I want to do the same for the body. This first rectangle will be my fill. With it selected, we'll go and just change the color. Now remember earlier, we saved that material that we created so I can reuse it. I'll go here to simple, click on it, and I'll go to asset this time and click on our drop-down menu right here, and I will search blue. And there is my blue material right there. Select it. And now I want to create an outline. So I'm going to duplicate this rectangle, Control D, and we will label this rectangle outline. And just like we did the ellipse, we're going to need to go into the operator stack and add a modifier, that outline modifier. And we will drop the distance down to 6 on that one so that it matches. And we need to change the material on that with it selected. Let's drop down here to our material. And just like the blue, we'll search that one, go to Asset, click here and type in gold. There's our gold material that we created. We'll add that in. And let's take a look at what we've created. I am going to go ahead and grab this rectangle outline and make it a child of the original rectangle. So you'll notice that our rectangles are on top of the ellipse, and for this design, that's not the way I want it. So I'm going to do something similar now with our logo ellipse and our rectangle here. To fix that, I'm going to use the translucent priority modifier again. I'm going to wrap up these two into another null, and then I'll add that modifier to that null object. I'm going to jump back into the motion design outliner, and I'm going to label this null actor as lower third. I'm going to close this up, and we have one more thing we need to add in real quick, and that's our text. I'm going to come over here to actors, go to text actor, double click on it. I'm going to go ahead and change the text to lower third. And I'm going to leave this on Roboto and just going to align its center there. And then I'm going to drop down. We'll go ahead and make a new material for this. So on the coloring style here, I'm going to go from solid to custom material and then create with material designer. Same thing that I've been doing. I'll just hit continue here. I'm going to change this again to translucent and jump into my base color. Change this to a solid color and change that to white. Hit OK, and I'm going to close that out. Since that is a translucent material, we can drop it into our lower third right here, and it is on top, and now you'll see that it is stacked on top in the viewer. I'm going to make a few more adjustments to this. I'll go up and adjust the size to make that fit right there. Set that to about 0.8. And now I'm going to start adding in some animation where we mask the rectangle, and then we also mask the lower third. The first animation I want to create is with the ellipse. So over in my motion design outliner, I'm going to grab that logo ellipse, and then I'm going to drag it down into the sequencer here. I've made some adjustments to the sequencer. I've set it to 30 frames per second, and then I adjusted its time to 10 seconds. To do that, I simply went down here, typed in 300. The timeline indicator moved to that position, and then you can hit set playback end right there, and then you should have a 10-second sequence. With the logo ellipse added in, I'm going to click on the plus track, and I'm going to go to transform. All of my transform properties are in there, and all I need is rotation for this one. Let me make sure that I'm back at the beginning of the timeline. That's where I want the animation to start. I'll go into rotation. And so on roll right here, I'm going to set my first keyframe. And then I'm just going to make this about 20 frames long. So I'll click down here, type in 20. And I'm going to go ahead and rotate that one full rotation, set that to 360. And so you'll see that right there. Then I'm going to jump back to the beginning of the timeline, and I'm going to use scale on the next one. I'm going to click right here to set a keyframe, open up my scale properties, and set all of these to 0. And then I'll jump to that 20 frame mark again and bring all of those back up to 1. And all I'm doing there is hitting 1 and then hitting tab twice to jump in between those properties. So we'll jump back to the beginning of our timeline and hit play and watch that come in. I'm going to make one adjustment because I want these first keyframes to simply be linear rather than cubic. And we'll take a look at that again real quick. I want to set this up now to animate the body, the rectangle here. Let me make sure that I'm at the location that I want this to start. So right there at 20 frames. And I'll go up here into the motion design outliner. I'm going to select the rectangle right there. And all I want on this is location. So down here in the details properties, I can go to the location, click on the keyframe button right there. That will add that rectangle in. I'm going to remember my original position of 97.5, and then I'm just going to scrub this off over here. That sets our first keyframe. Now, I do need to make you aware that I have this selected right here to auto key anything that is changed. So anytime my timeline indicator is sitting on a keyframe and I make a change to that property, it will update it. I'm going to jump to 40 frames in the timeline, and I'll set this back to 97.5. That's my original position. You see there that that second keyframe now is added in for me. I'm going to change the interpolation of this keyframe to linear. I'm going to scrub back, and yes, you'll see we have a problem. this needs to be hidden. This is where the mask is going to come into play. To set this mask, I'm actually going to set it on top of the rectangle right here in this position, because the way the mask works is it'll allow anything inside of the mask to be seen. Now you can invert that, but it'll be easier if we just go ahead and set up the mask right here. All we need for that mask is a 2D shape. I'll go to the rectangle, double click on it, and then I'm going to adjust it to make sure that it covers this body of the lower third. So down in the properties on the mesh size, I'll increase the width here and the height is fine. Make sure that it's going to cover this area and plenty of room down here. Now to set this up, I'm going to change the name of that rectangle to be our rectangle mask. And we're going to need to add a modifier to the rectangle mask and the rectangle that we are masking in. I can start with the rectangle mask, select it, go to the operator stack, add modifier, and we're going to drop down to, this will be the source. Select it. You'll see that it disappears, but nothing's happened to our lower third yet. And so I'll go back into the Motion Design Outliner, select that original rectangle. Remember, it has a child in there also, and we're going to go to the operator stack, add that modifier, and that's going to be the target. We can now scrub back in our timeline, and you'll see that the body of the lower third is no longer appearing over here. Now that we do have a little bit of an issue, I still have a little bit of the body showing right here, so I'm going to need to adjust the mask. So I'll go here to the rectangle mask, and I'm going to just slide that over till it is gone. And so when we scrub through, the ellipse comes in first, and then the body of the lower third comes in. Now, if you had problems with the mask working over here, something that I did that seemed to fix that is I went back into the modifier. So for the rectangle mask, operator stack, and I reset that channel right there and then set it back to 0 on both the mask right and also on the original rectangle there on the mask read, reset those back to 0. We'll actually take a look at that channel in just a minute and how it is used. Now let's animate the actual text coming in. I'm going to need another mask for this, and I'm going to use one of these rectangles here. I'm going to duplicate it and use that duplicated version. So back in the Motion Design Outliner, I'm going to use the rectangle outline, select it, and I'm going to hit Control D to duplicate that. I'm going to pull that out of the stack right there. And I'm going to actually relabel this to be text mask. And I'm going to need to get rid of this modifier right here. And we'll need to add in the mask source for it. And we're going to change this channel right here to 1. So our first mask set is on channel 0. We want those to be separated from this one. So we're going to set this to channel 1. You can actually use any number that you want, but I'm just going to set that one to channel 1. And then we'll go back into the Motion Design Outliner, select our text layer, and we want this to be the mask target. And that one is set to channel 1. If it's not set to 1, go ahead and make sure that it is. And we'll jump back into the outliner. Let's select that text and we can bring that up, and you'll see now that it is disappearing. It's only going to appear right here. That's where that text mask is. So that's where that text is going to appear. So when it slides down in, you'll see right there that it's being cut off right there by that mask. It's going to slide in. So let's animate that. I'll grab that text layer and I'm going to drag that into the timeline, add the transform properties for it, open those up, and I'm right there on that 40 frame mark. And so I want to animate the location. Let me drop in here and we're going to animate that Z axis. So I'll scrub that up so that it's just right outside of the mask area there. Set that keyframe, and then we'll go another 20 frames in right there to 60, and then we'll drop that down in. I'm going to change the interpolation on this first keyframe, and now we should have our full animation. Let me jump back to the beginning of the timeline, make sure that nothing is selected, and hit play. The next use of the mask modifier I want to look at is using it with a media plate, which uses video. So you can use any video that you want to with this, and actually any shape that you want to with it. I'm going to use text as the mask, but again, you can use any shape that you want to. I want to start a new level for this, so I'm going to go into the content drawer right here and make sure I'm on content. There's my main level that we're in right here. I'm going to add a new level, so I'm going to right click and go up to level, and I'll label this smoke mask. Then we're going to double click on it and open it. We want to save everything. And from here, I'm going to need to jump back into the motion design. So let me click right here. And we're back in the motion design mode. I'm going to go into the motion design outliner, and we need to add in some defaults for our lighting and for our scene. So right here, I'm going to go to create defaults and hit spawn. That adds in our default scene, all of the actors that we need to get this thing started. I'll do a little housekeeping real quick. I'm going to change this to 30 frames per second, and then I'm going to add this to 10 seconds. So I'm going to type in 300 right there and then hit our end marker right there. So we now have a 10-second sequence. I also need to import the footage that I want to use. I'm going to go to the content drawer, and I'm going to make a new folder for the videos. And so I'm going to type in videos right there and jump into that folder, and then right click and go to import. And I have a couple of videos that I'm going to bring in. I'm going to go into clips right here and this fire and this smoke. So let me select smoke first, open it up, and I'll import that other one real quick, fire. And let me save both of those. Select them both and then hit Control S, and they're saved. And you'll see now that they are labeled as a file media source. These will be added into the media plate. Now there's a couple of ways of doing this. I can grab this, drop it in, and it's going to go ahead and drop it into a media plate. That's real simple. I'm also going to show you how over here in actors, I'll bring up the actors, and then I'm going to double click on the media plate. We'll just kind of start fresh with this one. And then our media plate is right here. Select it, and here's our details. I haven't added the video into it yet, so we just have a rectangle here. So to add that in, I'm going to drop down here to our playlist, and there's a couple of ways of adding this in. You can open up the media plate. I'll do that in just a minute. Or you can go right here, click on that, and you'll see it's only looking for those file media sources. So I'm going to add the smoke in. And if you want to see that in the media plate and make use of it, click on the media plate, and it'll open up this window right here. Now, it still has not been loaded, and so you'll see open right here. You also see this option to open right here. All of these properties right here can be found in the details panel. So pretty much anything that you can do here, you can also do in the details panel. I'll close this out, and then I'll load that video. So click right there, and that loads it into the media plate in the viewer. This media plate's a little small, so I'm going to jump up to the scale, and I'll probably bring that up to 7. And again, just hit load on that and let that play through. And so you can see that video clip now in your viewer. To use the mask modifier with the media plate, we need to make an adjustment to the parent material of the media plate. I'm going to walk you through the process of doing that, but I originally learned how to do that from the Pixel Prof here, down here on one of his videos right here. This Unreal 5.4 motion design object masking with asset materials. I'm going to go ahead and set up the text and the mask so that you can see the warning that we get when we need to change that parent material. So quickly, I'm going to add in a text actor. I'm going to make some adjustments to the text actor. Go ahead and I'm just going to type in smoke and enforce uppercase on that. I think I'll change the font to impact, something a little bit more bold. And I'm going to line that up center, and we'll increase the size of that a good bit. And I'm going to drop it down here. And from this point, it should be pretty simple. Let me close up the default scene here. We want the text actor to be the mask. So let's select it, go to operator stack, add modifier, and make that the source. And then back in the motion design, let's select the media plate there, go to the operator stack, add that in as the target. And then you'll see the warning that we get telling us that the parent material for the media plate is not set up properly. To find the material that we need to make adjustments to, I'm going to go back into the motion design outliner, make sure that media plate is selected. Let me bring up our details. And under the media plate right here, I'm going to drop down to this static mesh component and click on it. Down here, we're going to see we want this material right here. So I'm going to browse to this material. It has selected that parent material for this media plate. I'm going to make a copy of this and then make the changes to the copy. I'm just going to grab that, click and drag out and copy here. Here's the copy right down here. I'm going to rename this. I'm going to get rid of opaque 1 right there, and I'm going to just name this My Mask. And let's double click on it and open it up. We're going to need to get access to one other material so that we can copy a node out of it and bring it into here. So I'm going to minimize this for right now. Then I'll go into the content drawer and let me show you where we are. I'm going to go all the way back up to the top here. You'll see that we have all content and then we should have engine. If engine is not showing right there, then let's go over here to settings and make sure that we can find show engine content and show plugin content. With those two selected, we can jump back over here to engine. We're going to open it up and then we'll go to plugins, open that up. And then we're going to need to navigate down to motion design. Motion design content, open up that folder and then click on mask resources. We want this M_avalanche mask usage. Let's double click on it. We have both of those materials open now in front of us. So all we need to do is grab this MF_apply mask 2D, select it and copy it, Control C. Then let's jump back into our media plate, My Mask right there. And we'll just select an area and paste that in. We'll need to change this material. So make sure that this node is selected right here. We'll need to change this to masked. It's in the blend mode. It's opaque right now, and we'll need to change that to masked. And so now we can take the opacity from this node here and drop it into the opacity mask. We do need to add in another node. I'm just going to hold down the 1 key and then click. It's going to give us this constant right here, and we want to apply that to the opacity. We're still not seeing our material. So right here in the value, let's set that to 1. And we will convert this to a parameter so we can adjust it later if needed. And we'll label that opacity. Once we've done that, let's apply this and save it. And we no longer need either one of these. So let's close that out. And so I want to swap those two materials out. So I'm going to click on Browse to Material once again. And there's the original material, but there's the material that we created, M_media_plate_my mask. I'm going to grab it and drag it over and drop it right there. And so now that mask is working. Jump back into our viewer and let's select that media plate and reload it. And so now you'll see that the mask is working. If you want to adjust the text layer, you can grab that text layer and move it around a little bit so that it fits how you want that video to be seen in there. And if I want to control that video clip, all I need to do is grab the media plate, drag it down here into the timeline. It's going to ask you this right here and just click yes on it. That way it gives us control down here in the timeline of the video playback. Go back to the beginning of the timeline, hit play, and you'll see that it will play from the beginning of that video. And so if you need to adjust that anywhere, you can slide that in the sequence. To add some depth to our text, I'm going to go ahead and create a 3D outline for it. I'll make an adjustment first. I'm going to kern this a little bit so that I have a little more space between my text. So I'll set that to 2. And now I'm going to duplicate this text, Control D, and then down in the details panel for this text layer, we'll take a look at the geometry, and we can extrude this. I'll extrude this out maybe 15 and then bevel it a little bit. And then I'm going to click outline on it so that I can see this a little bit better. I'm going to jump out of my camera and let me bring the speed of my camera down just a little bit so I'm not flying all over the place. And then we'll take a look at this and see how it's lining up. You see where the media plate is, and we can maybe push that back a little bit, give it some depth, and make some adjustments however you want to on your outline there. Select that outline, and again, in the geometry, work with those properties. I'll go ahead and create a material for this real quick. Change it from solid to custom material. Then I'll create material with the designer, click continue. And I think I'll just make this kind of a blue color. And I'll close that out. And we'll swing around and take a look at this. Jump back to the beginning and hit play. And so there is our text layer with a video masked into it. This same process will also work for shapes, rectangles, ellipses, any of the shapes that you have over here. You can use those as your mask. I'm going to go back into my media plate and I'm going to change out the video real quick. Click right here under playlist and change that to fire. And then I need to load that. Click on load right there. And so you'll see now we have that fire. So any clip that I load into the engine, it'll be available to me here for the playlist and I can select it. As always, I hope this tutorial has been helpful. For more on motion media design in Unreal Engine, hit the like and subscribe button.